Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode number 28 of the Capitalist Corner. I am Mark Pellegrino, your host and the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and co-chairman of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz. Also, the host of his own show, which I hope you guys have been watching, The Rational Egoist. Check it out. It's darn good. You're going to be smarter for it. You're going to be better off for it. Michael, anything else I can say about it? I mean, would it be weird you bragging about your own show? I don't think so.
No, it's a great show. I do great interviews. Occasionally have people on to debate. Just if you're going to listen, you should know that if somebody says something that you disagree with and you think I would disagree with, but I don't correct them, don't assume that that means I'm sanctioning what they're saying. I tell people ahead of time if I'm going to be challenging them about things. So if I don't anticipate it and they say something, unless it's extremely outlandish, I won't correct them because I don't like to sandbag people. I like to give people, the opportunity to know it's going to be a confrontational type of interview. That's all, but it's a great show. You should tune in. You should definitely watch my current interview with Phil Magness. It's up there right now. It's absolutely phenomenal. He dismantles Marxism. He's an economic historian, and he's great.
I can't wait to watch it, and then post it on social media and tag the American Communist Party in it, and see and just watch.
Oh, I'm going to text it to you right now.
Okay, good. And I just want to watch them go ape shit, which is what they tend to do. If you see me squirming around here, folks, it's not because I have a case of hemorrhoids. It's because my puppy is back here, my 18-and-a-half-year-old dog. And he looks so miserable usually walking around the floor. I just thought I'd try to contain him in the seat here. And so every once in a while, I'm going to be moving around, accommodating him, because he's 18 and a half, and he can do any damn thing he wants at this point. And he knows it. And I hope he's not taking advantage of me. Well, guys, you know I'm only here for a half an hour, right, Michael? Then I have an appointment. I got to get out, so we gotta get to.
Oh no, that's right. I'm on my own again.
Yeah, that's right. It's only for one more week after this, and then we'll be back to the normal schedule. But we got some bad news today. I got to tell you, all the news you sent me today really upset me.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to upset you, but
can you do something about this news cycle, because it is depressing as fuck, and I don't want to depress everybody out there, but they got to be made aware of what exactly is going on in the world, and I think they have to be given some form of solutions, and some of those solutions are not going to sound very appetizing to a number of folks, because we've reached the stage with $37 trillion in debt. Political patronage has extended its tentacles into every aspect of society, like a malignant tumor that has grown and extended itself to the vital organs of the body. It is going to be very, very rough separating ourselves from the parasitic political class, but it's what has to happen. And this headline from the Epoch Times, guys, which is a conservative newspaper, just announced today that Speaker Johnson rules out Medicaid spending cut proposal. Now, there are a lot of people that probably think that's good news because, Trump, after all, claimed in his campaign that he wasn't going to cut entitlements. And there are people who are, dependent. It's apparently in the neighborhood of 11 million more people dependent on Medicaid than were before the Obama administration. And they hold universal coverage, quote unquote, as if it's a real thing, as an ideal, as opposed to individual rights. And so they're coming from this premise that the state has some kind of function in your healthcare and providing healthcare services to you, as opposed to it has absolutely no function in the healthcare market or any market whatsoever. It's a policeman, and using the gun to steal funds from some people and redistribute them for others for the quote unquote well-intended purpose of taking care of them medically does not make the theft any less of a theft, folks. We're not living in Robin Hood times. We're living in a relatively free state in which you have the capacity, or should have the capacity, to say no, and or give freely of your resources to somebody if you choose. You definitely shouldn't have a gun pointed to your head, and definitely when we're in such dire straits economically. This has to happen. we're at the point, Michael, where there's no question that they have to cut entitlements if they're serious about the debt. And all of the articles that you posted to me so far show me that that's the last thing they're actually serious about. What say you about all this?
Well, that's exactly why I sent it to you. So the Trump administration, and they're supposed to get a hold of the debt. Before he was president in 2016, he actually said it would be very easy to not only balance the budget, but pay off debt. Of course, he exacerbated the debt. So now they, assembled this whole Doge thing. Turns out that on net, if we accept their numbers, it's about $14 billion that they've trimmed. Meanwhile, Trump wants to increase the defense budget, but there's no cost to be seen. So he's going to cut taxes. That's his plan. Cut taxes, increase spending on defense, not cut spending anywhere else, and eliminate $14 billion in waste, fraud, and abuse. And yet people are going to tell us that he's a serious capitalist. He's a free market guy. He's going to balance the budget. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Of course, he's not going to do any of it. And when people won't, it's just plain as day, Mark, right? It'd be like me saying, no, Mark's not wearing a hat right now. No, Trump told me no, Mark's not wearing a hat. It's absolutely ludicrous. And it's scary because we're drowning in debt and there's no end in sight.
Yeah, guys, the emperor has no clothes.
And no hat.
And no hat. Well, can you imagine a hat fitting over that head of hair? But I don't want to get personal. But this guy claimed that Doge was going to cut $2 trillion off the debt. They've managed only 16 billion, as you say. I think it's 14 because 14. I think they said they've saved 150 billion, but they've had to spend 136 billion on expenses. And best case scenario, it's about 14 billion. Yeah. So I thought it was projected down to 63 billion, but now 14 billion is even worse. And so the projected budget cuts that they were putting before the House Speaker was something like $1.2 trillion over 10 years. It's not even like the immediate budget. It's like over 10 years. So, that amounts to very little shaved off the actual budget, folks. And that means with lower tax rates, the deficit is going to boom. And there's only a few ways in which they can finance this deficit. They can borrow, they can print money, or they can tax you. None of that works, folks. None of it works for you. If you like your freedom, if you think property, if you believe in property rights, if you think you have property and money too, it's a medium of exchange, but it's also yours. You earned it. It's a certificate of exchange. It should represent something in the real world. Then they're stealing from you every day that they borrow, every day that they print. They are stealing the value of your dollar away from you every single day. And if they lower interest rates on top of that, they're stealing even more from you, but they're doing it secretly. So the Trump administration is not serious about what has to be done in order to make us more free and more prosperous. I think if they wanted to make us more free, they would cut tariffs to zero. That's right, to zero. Allow complete and total free trade with every country that wants to trade with us, instead of the bully tactics that he's using now. And there's even a post on X that is frightening that you sent me. They would lower corporate tax rates to zero. And that would incentivize people to come in if that's what he indeed wants. He doesn't have to use the bully tactics of tariffs. He doesn't have to beat anybody over the head with a stick. He just has to incentivize liberty. He just has to allow people the opportunity to come in if they want, and or for us to go out if we want, because that's what freedom is, folks. And all he has to also do is deregulate. Now, his deregulation plans aren't very serious either. He's trimming a little there, trimming a little here, but it's more window dressing than it is actual cuts. This is what has to be done in order for us to get out of this debt debacle that we're in. It's more than a debacle, folks. When this house of cards comes crashing down, it's going to come crashing down big. And I know that Misesians have been saying this for a long time. And the MMT folks have been saying, see what the Austrians say, it hasn't happened. So if you're the monopoly producer of money, you can do whatever you want. Just tax it out of the system. You don't have to worry about inflation. Inflation doesn't mean anything. Yes, it does. It's robbing you of the fruits of your labor as we speak, and at some point, it's going to come crashing down around our ears. I don't think Trump will be too affected by it, or Biden, or Obama, or any of the parasitic political class, but we certainly will be. So the uncomfortable truth for some folks is, given the dependency and the political patronage that's been going on in this country for 75 years, is that we have to make some uncomfortable choices. It's uncomfortable for people who think there's entitlements and rights to such things. Not so uncomfortable for people who believe in individual liberty, but will be physically uncomfortable for the people who have to now work and or do things on their own, become independent, find independent sources of financing. There's no other way to get around this debt. Do you agree with me, Michael? I mean, we're headed for the cliff. There's no question about it.
Well, I think that ultimately, yes, but I also think it's important to recognize that the debt drags the economy even now. So it's not as if we aren't suffering any consequences from it. I mean, they have to service it. And in order to service the debt, to pay the interest on it, they've either got to raise taxes or print money. And neither of those are appealing options. But I do have some breaking news, Mark. We, speaking of deficits, have a serious deficit of viewer to likes going on right now.
What's going on there? Why is that?
I don't know. They're not hitting the like button, but we need them to for the algorithm. Bonnie Bertrand actually makes a good point in the comments here, Mark. She says, this policy of repeating something that's not true over and over until certain, and she has that in parentheses, people treat it as true seems to be becoming the norm. Trump's method every day. Scary. It's actually called the illusory truth effect, that when something is repeated over and over again, people come to accept it as truth. I actually interviewed an expert on the subject recently, Dr. Joe Pierre. And it is a very serious problem, because when people hear it over and over, they just assume, yeah, that must be true. And politicians, and it's happened before Trump, of course, but Trump has really amped it up, take advantage of this. So just to, sort of piggyback on Bonnie's good comment.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's why the Palestinians are winning the PR war, because they repeat falsehoods over and over and over again on social media. Oftentimes, that's somebody's primary source of news information. They see that, and that becomes their truth. They haven't done a deep dive into the situation, but they've seen it so many times that it's their reality, and that's scary. Speaking of not defunding the parasitic regime. Another article in the Epoch Times, another article in the Epoch Times exposed a little difference of opinion in the administration. I actually think Cash is playing the fall guy in this, but the headline was Director Patel says he disagrees with Trump on proposed FBI budget cuts. Now, I think, this is a ruse. Of course, they want to increase the police state. Of course, they want to increase the military, and military could be a good thing. We could increase the military. But increasing the power of the police state is not something that I like, particularly since 9/11. The police state, the surveillance state has increased its power a great deal over your lives, folks. We've given up quite a few liberties since 9/11. Which is the subject of another article. But instead of reducing the deficit or reducing the FBI budget to somewhere in the neighborhood of 10, it was like a $500 million cut or something infinitesimal like that. He wants to raise it to 11 point something billion. So he wants more money coming into the police state, not less. Which scares the heck out of me, not only because they're not cutting spending as they said they would, but they're increasing the power of a police state that was weaponized against political opposition only 4 years ago, and is now being used probably for the same things today. What say you?
Well, I actually sent you this article only for the one purpose that you have now a member of the administration, when it's his agency, says, no, not so fast, don't cut. And that seems to be the microcosm of what happens everywhere. No agency wants to see its budget cut. No individual wants to see their benefits, entitlements, or anything else cut. And so, it's fine. Cut. Yes, let's cut the deficit. Let's cut spending. Don't touch my stuff. And that's a serious problem. And whether or not, cash is just being used or whether it's serious, the point is that within the administration, there's pushback on cutting spending.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely true. Although McMahon seems to be wanting to cut spending in one area.
Yes,
she's been given the order. That's why I think he's being sort of used as a fall guy in a sense. But right. The incentives in Washington is to grow parasitically large. The larger your organization, the more people you have, the more drag on the economy, the more prestige you get in Washington, which is the opposite incentive for businessmen. Businessmen need to cut costs, they need to trim things down, they need to keep things efficient in order to build profits, and they get wealthy by making their product more accessible to you and cutting costs in the meantime. So their incentives are the exact opposite in business. So maybe Cash got bit by the Washington D.C. bug, and now he's taken the Washington D.C. incentives and says, no, I want a big bludgeoning agency out there. I need $11 billion to helm this thing, and that's just the way Washington works. And now I'm going to do it. They become the swamp, don't they? They all become the swamp.
Yes, they are swamp creatures. Akira Felix, puts in quotes, "Don't tread on my Medicare." And I'm reminded during the Tea Party movement when one of the Tea Party protesters says, "Keep your government hands off my Medicare," and
was totally unaware of the irony of it all.
Totally. I mean, what do you do in that situation? How do you even have a conversation? But that's what we're up against as pro-capitalists.
That is what we're up against, and we're up against a lot of things, folks. The expansion of the police state, which is now coming to everyone's doorstep, folks. It's now right here. Since May 7th, you're supposed to get your official U.S. ID. Now, this law was passed in 2005 in response to 9/11. It was an emergency. It was an emergency situation. We needed IDs, these special IDs, to prevent anything like a 9/11 from happening in the future. And now, 20 years later, the emergency it was apparently such an emergency that it required 20 years for us to get there. They are now upon us, folks. But it's apparently would have, like all laws that are passed apparently for our protection, wouldn't have done anything to prevent the hijacking that happened on 9/11. Apparently, all of 19 hijackers used valid IDs that passed the scrutiny of all the airports at the time. I think there were 3 flags. And those guys only had their luggage removed until they boarded the flight because they wanted to avoid a Lockerbie, Scotland incident. And then I guess their bags were promptly reboarded with them, and there was nothing in their luggage that was not approved previously by the FAA. So there was this law that they passed in 2005, ostensibly for an emergency. It really amounts to, in my crazy capitalist individualist mind, a means of garnering control over the population. Do you agree with me?
Of course. This reminds me of the gun control. Whenever a shooting happens, the gun control advocates scream and yell, but none of them can show usually how the policies that they're advocating would have prevented the shooting in question. And this was necessary. First of all, the law was passed 3.5, 4 years after 9/11. So there was not another 9/11 in between, but they said they had to have this to prevent another 9/11, but it wasn't implemented for 20 years. There was not another 9/11. This wouldn't even have prevented 9/11, but evidently we need it now. And I mean, come on. It seems obvious on its face that it's just a power grab by the government. And for the people that push for this and they say, well, I want to be safe. I will never in my life take safety over freedom, ever. And it's ultimately, it's a false sense of security. The world is a inherently risky place. None of us makes it out alive, right? But we can live life to the fullest, which we can't do if we have a government boot on our neck trying to control everything we do to keep us safe.
Yeah, and you know what keeps us safer anyway? This has already been statistically proven. Private airport security. Privatizing the airports would incentivize them to tie their airport in with their safety record. Privatizing the entire airline business would incentivize them to advertise based on safety. It would become a selling point for their airline, that they value your safety, and not just in words, because it can't be deflected down through the FAA or the TSA or any other bureaucratic organization. Your safety is completely in their hands. It's a selling point, and that would make them totally and utterly responsive to the customer, as opposed to TSA, which is responsive to no one, right?
Mark,
And
I have a funny anecdote for you.
yes, go ahead.
Okay. So in prison, you will frequently see correctional officers sleeping. And I mean, during rec, they're be knocked out cold, sleeping, sometimes snoring. So one of a female correctional officer that I happened to see knocked out asleep at work. When I recently flew to San Diego, I went to the airport and she was one of the inspectors.
Oh no.
That was inspecting the stuff coming through. And I couldn't help but laugh. Like, really? I doubt that in the last 2 years, she suddenly, or 3 years, whatever it's been, imbibed a strong sense of professionalism and diligence and attention to her job. But yet she's inspecting the bags, and that's supposed to make people feel safe. Now, I wonder if I were to make the announcement who she was at the airport. I know her. She was a correctional officer at Osborne Correctional Institution, and I saw her sleeping on the job with dangerous felons all around. How safe would everybody then feel at that airport?
Well, now lots of people know it, folks. So hit the like button so that we know you just heard that little anecdote. It should strike fear in your hearts, guys. We should be fighting for privatization of stuff like this, and instead we allow the federal government to steal our moral agency from us, and by doing that, gaining more power over our lives. And we don't want that. We don't need it. I mean, Michael, there was a little thing here you sent me that I guess it's a YouTube video of Trump talking about deals.
The deal maker.
The deal maker here apparently believes in zero-sum games. Now, the way deals normally work, folks, especially in a capitalist society, is a win-win scenario. So, right, you trade because you feel like you're getting a better deal than the other guy, and the other guy feels the same. So you exchange, you trade with each other, because it's not a value for value exchange as much as it's a better value. You're exchanging a lesser value for a better value, so it's a profit to you. That's the way deals should work. He's already said that, look, in a deal, one of you's got to walk away unhappy. No, that's not necessarily true. You might not get everything you want in a deal, but you should walk away feeling like you profited and you're better off. Otherwise, why make the deal? In this case, Trump demonstrates his zero-sum mentality by saying, they're the ones who want to do business with us. We don't want to do business with them. If you want to shop, if you want to come and shop, go ahead, come and shop. But if you don't want to, fuck off, basically, is his mentality. Now, I don't think that's a way to strike a deal with a foreign power. I don't think that's a way to strike trade negotiations with. I don't think that's the proper setting, right? To play the tough guy against these foreign powers. Like I've said, you should reduce tariffs to zero and let them trade with you. Let them. It doesn't matter if they put tariffs on our stuff. That harms them. It hurts us a little bit. It hurts them worse. If our products can go to them more efficiently, and they're making their people buy something more expensive because it's protecting a local industry, that's their problem, not ours. We want to make things more accessible to everybody out there, because life is getting more and more expensive. Because, as you said, servicing this debt, servicing the parasitic political class, withdraws a lot of capital from productive enterprise to that most unproductive of enterprises of all, the United States government. What do you think of Trump's attitude, man?
Well, let's examine it. So first of all, if we don't need to trade with other countries, then why put tariffs? Just stop all trade. We don't need it. We'll be fine, right? You don't need to make a deal. Who the hell in the world makes a deal if they don't benefit from it? I mean, that'd be the ultimate in self-sacrifice. Not that our government's opposed to altruism, but I don't think they know it. That altruism is their guiding principle. So that's the first thing. But the second thing, how does Trump say, and how do they say with a straight face, these trade deals are killing us that we have in place now? Where crippled America was Trump's book. It's wrecking our economy. Everybody's out of work. We need to bring manufacturing back. And then on the other hand, say, look, we have the best markets in the world. They want our markets. We don't want theirs. Well, how? How are our markets so good? I don't get it.
Can I offer an explanation?
Well, I suppose.
Okay,
it's your show too.
Here it comes. It's called Trump math.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Do you want to hear how you calculate Trump math?
Sure.
Okay, so let's say we have a $200 billion trade deficit with the country.
Yeah.
All right. If that country no longer trades with us anymore, he's saving $200 billion.
That's true. He is.
Well, I don't think that's the way the math works, but that's Trump. So he can make claims, and he'll probably get his press secretary to make claims that he's saving the U.S. economy trillions upon trillions of dollars as we slide further into debt, maintaining the bigger police state that he's now building up. Look, I have a trade deficit with almost everyone I exchange with. I have a trade deficit with my jiu-jitsu academy. I have a trade deficit with my grocery store, with my pet store, with my vet, with my doctors. I mean, everyone that offers a service to me, technically, I mean, if you're talking about strict numbers, I am in a trade deficit to them, but that's not the way trade works. Right? It's the value that I get from them is greater than the money I'm choosing to hand over to them. So we have to get rid of this notion that there is such a thing as a trade deficit and that it matters. That's protectionist nonsense. And there are a few people who will benefit from protectionist policies, right? The farmers that they're protecting, or the steel industry that they're protecting. But everybody else suffers down the line just to protect that small group of folks. You have to get that through your minds, guys. I think most people listening here probably already realize that protectionist policies hurt everybody and benefit only a small number of people with political pull. But if you don't, let this wake you up. This guy right here is a zero-sum dude. He should not be in the White House. This actually, listening to him, his braggadocio in this video, actually scared me, Michael. It made me depressed.
Well, you're hit with there's no doubt what's going on here. It's one of two things, maybe both, and it's scary. Either he's a complete moron, or he's an inveterate liar. He can be both. Yeah. He can be both. But what I'm saying is that when you're faced with the fact that your president, the president of the United States, the man who everyone says is the most powerful guy in the world, is a moron, a liar, or both, that should scare you. It should scare everybody. The fact that it doesn't scares me.
And the fact that there's pundits out there actually excusing this kind of talk and acting as if this kind of braggadocio and bullying on the international market serves the American people in some way. It doesn't. It doesn't, actually. It's it makes us fall into the cliche of the ugly American. You know what I mean? This is the cliche American. This is like the cliche of masculinity. It's the cliche of Americanism. It has no relationship to either concept. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that as far as the people go, I've known this, but it was reinforced for me. People that spend their time listening to the type of pundits you're talking about have really no idea that there's other positions out there. They're like shocked when pushback comes. I experienced that recently when some guys from a local talk show decided that they were going to attack me, not physically, verbally. Now, a year ago, they did it. A year and a half ago, and I let it go because my life circumstances were such that if I engaged them, other people would have been affected, and I didn't want to put other people at that type of risk. But I no longer have that. So when they decided to attack me again, I unleashed on them it verbally, and it was like, oh my God. And, other people, you, Jim Valiant, also got involved. Some of the people in our chat got involved. And one of the guys actually says, why am I being attacked? Because he's so used to listening to people spout his views and being able to call a radio station and say whatever he wants without any pushback, that when he gets pushback on his BS, he says he's being attacked.
Mm.
And that again is a microcosm of what we have writ large with the Trumpiverse, right? They're locked in this bubble and they just can't believe that there's other positions out there, which is why when you challenge them, when you get a shot, they TDS, because that's all they know.
I'm saying goodbye to Nicole. She always says goodbye. A great show.
Yes, goodbye, Nicole. But you also have to say goodbye, sir.
Yes, I do. I have an appointment that I will have next Thursday as well, and then we have the full Thursday to do together. But I don't think I left you with any stories unless you want to get into the nitty gritty with folks.
I got some topics I want to discuss.
Okay, good. So, but I also want to say to everybody, not only hit the like button, but bring your questions tomorrow. Bring your questions, and because tomorrow is going to be the Q&A day. We'll have news items that we can talk about, but it'll also be a Q&A day. So bring your questions. I want to hear what you all have to say about what's going on. And some of you guys, I hope you have something really positive to tell me, because I'm seriously, I am seriously verklempt about everything I'm hearing. It's really getting to me, and I'm trying to maintain an upbeat spirit and a sense of optimism in the face of all this. But it's super hard because I don't have control over what these maniacs are doing, other than trying to stand on a hill and shout to my friends, let's get together and stop this as soon as we possibly can. Anyway, thanks, Michael. I'll see you tomorrow. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Awesome.
Peace.
Have a good workout.
Thanks, man.
All right, Mark is gone, and I hope you will stay with me. So there was a story in Connecticut. I'm interested to get people's feedback on this. So there's a story in Connecticut about this mayor who got kind of pissed off at constituents complaining, and he started yelling, and not yelling, but typing insults at them online. And I'm not going to defend that, but I listened to a radio show, and the host said, "Well, I would rather have a guy like that if he's doing a good job." Now, I don't know whether the guy's doing a good job or not, but it just reminded me of some things. When I was a kid, I went to get tattoos. I got some tattoos as an adult too, but I mean, when I was 18, I got some tattoos. I suppose some will quibble that I'm not a kid, but whatever. I was much, much younger. So I go and I get the tattoos, and the guy that gave me my tattoos was said by everybody to be a real jerk. He's a jerk. And he was. And there's, he had signs in his office saying, "I'm not deaf, I'm ignoring you," that kind of thing. But he was also the best. So I'm thinking, well, these tattoos are going to last me my lifetime. I got to deal with this jerk for, a couple hours. I can do that. And I watched the show House, and I love the show. And House is like the best diagnostician, the best doctor there is, right? But he's a complete asshole. And the question that it's meant to ask is, would you rather have a doctor who's a jerk but treats you, or a doctor that's very nice but can't? And for me, I'm going with the jerk every time. I got to deal with you very limited. Like, I'm not one that cares. I don't care, for instance, if I go to a restaurant and the staff's not nice and they don't come over and chat with me. I don't give a damn. I want good service and I want good food. Bring me my food in a timely manner, have it be good, and you can be as big a jerk as you want. Now, a lot of people disagree. So I'm just curious what you guys think about this. Now, obviously, I would want both. I prefer it with people that are nice. I try to be nice myself. But if faced with the choice, I want the jerk. So what say you? What would you rather have? That's my first question I'm going to throw out there to the audience. My next question is a little bit different. So everybody here knows my story, I'm sure. And usually it doesn't bother me when people criticize me based on things I did 28 years ago, right? I usually don't care, right? I know what type of person I was. I was a complete scumbag. I know what I am now. I'm a moral human being that worked incredibly hard. But sometimes it bothers me. And the reason it bothers me is because it's like nothing that I can do can ever atone for something that I can't change. It's also, if not the worst thing I ever did, right up there, probably is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And I just wonder, how would people, first of all, how would you, secondly, how would you think other people would like to be judged based on the worst thing they ever did 28 years ago? What's your thoughts on that? Seriously, I mean, I'm not, listen, if you say to me, listen, what you did is unforgivable, that's all there is to it, I can take that. I can deal with it. I'm just curious what you think. I want to know your thoughts on the topic. So back to the other question. Robert Nasser says, I prioritize the enjoyable interaction because I can afford to. Alan Thomas says, can I just get fresh ink? Ray Jacobson says, it's a similar dynamic to the classic nice guy choice, ugly nice girl versus hot bitchy girl. That's an interesting take, Race. Thanks. And Akira Felix says, I tend to be okay with arrogance when the person knows what they're doing. I'm with Akira on this. 100% equal to reality says, sounds like my type of asshole. Well, maybe some people just like assholes. I don't know. And then Akira Felix says, if I cared about if he's a jerk, I wouldn't have read Nathaniel Branden at all. Wow. You dredged up the old Nathaniel Branden. That's very interesting because if I can get this in the screen, yes, you're never going to get it. The Psychology of Self-Esteem happens to be right next to me. Interestingly, Psychology of Self-Esteem is one of the books that most helped me in the change process. It really served as a guide, as sort of a reference point, a book that I read over and over and over again in the change process. So Kat Sterling says, some people never change their ways, unfortunately. But if you can show that you have, the past is the past, you're a new person who has learned from your mistakes and moved forward. Kat Sterling, I agree with you 100% that most people simply do not change. Most people are not incentivized to change. In order to change, the right sort of, I don't know what the word is, a pivot point, maybe it needs to be reached where the discomfort that you're suffering with who you are outweighs the discomfort that you're going to have to go through to change. And for some people, the pain that change requires is just too much. And believe me, I know what the pain is like. It's a lot. It's a real lot. Kat Sterling says she plans to get the book soon. Good. I highly recommend it. Greg Lewis says, I was referring to the airport audience in general, finding out that an ex-con was tattletaling on an airport security, former prison guard. Greg, I wasn't referring to you. You are great. You're one of my great Facebook friends. I find your commentary absolutely superb. Speaking of the ex-con thing, Akira Felix said something earlier. I got to find it, so I'm going to scroll up here. He said, wow, there are a lot of comments here. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. Keep bringing the comments. Well, I can't find it. Anyways, Akira Felix said something, and if it wasn't you, Akira, let me know. But he said, Mike is ending careers right now. And let me just say, if only it were the truth. So when Brent McCall and I wrote our book, Down the Rabbit Hole, How the Culture of Corrections Encourages Crime, okay, Michael could be ending careers right now. Right here. There it is. That's from Akira Felix. Brent McCall and I knew that our credibility was shot as convicted criminals, serious violent offenses. So we listed in our book as many dates, times, and places as possible because there's cameras in the prison that can be checked to verify our claims. We talked about correctional officers warning inmates about lockdowns coming, about correctional industry staff stealing stuff and bringing it home with them, staff encouraging inmates to slow down on jobs to get overtime, and I could go on and on, but I think that suffices. So we named all that stuff. We got our book to the state senator who at the time was the toughest on crime in the state, Len Suzio, who's also a good friend of mine now, by the way, actually spoke for me to get me out of prison. We got a book to him, and we got a book, a copy of the book to then Commissioner of Corrections, Scott Semple. Scott Semple, knowing that Len Suzio, who was a senator, was involved in this, gave his copy of the book to Senator Suzio. The book was Post-it notes throughout, and his little notes were inside for Senator Suzio to see. And Scott Semple was saying, yes, they're telling the truth about this. Yes, this did happen. Yes, this occurred. And he wasn't at all happy about it. Nobody lost their job. One person got suspended, and it was only because he was too dumb to lie. He was suspended because he made, at work in the prison industries, he made one of those address signs that you put outside a house for his neighbor, and he admitted to it when they asked him. So he got, I think, a 1-week suspension. My only point in this, Akira, is that this is a government agency, the Department of Corrections, and like other government agencies, it's just so many entrenched interests that don't just go away. They're unionized and very difficult to fire, no matter how incompetent, no matter how harmful they are, no matter how much they don't do their jobs. Akira says, yeah, it was a joke. Akira, it's fine that it was a joke. I didn't think that you thought the person was actually going to get fired, but I did think that it would be a good kickoff for an interesting conversation. Robert Nasir says, incidentally, when I say I can afford to prioritize nice, I'm not talking about money. Well, that's very interesting, Robert, because actually you kind of touch on what Mark was talking about earlier, that in a trade, everybody benefits. If they didn't perceive themselves as benefiting, they would not make the trade. So Kaya, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Prigmore says, we are all human. We all make mistakes. It's how a person grows from past mistakes, and who they become now shows integrity and values of that person. Thank you very, very much, Kaya. I appreciate the sentiment. Another topic that I read about this morning, that it's not really current event driven, but it's philosophically driven. The statement was that unconditional love is not a good thing. Other than to, I would say to, your children, when children are first coming, into being, and they're growing, unconditional love, I think, is warranted. But from that, is unconditional love a good thing? For instance, would you like to have a romantic partner that loved you unconditionally, regardless of who you were, the type of person you are, your character? Or would you rather have somebody that loved you based on who you are, who you've created as a human being? I would really, really like to get your take on that. Oh, I've got none, so I'm going to have to try to figure out another. Oh, look at this. Sebastian Scalora says, the people who haven't changed, well, that's an easy decision. They're scum. Oh, okay, Sebastian. That's a little harsh, they're scum, but whatever. I get it. We'll go with it, I suppose. And Rock Chartrand, he says, and I'm going to post it up here. That's actually Katrin Kohler. She's Katrin Kohler saying she's for the second. And Rock Chartrand says, love, like dignity and respect, are to be earned. Rock, I absolutely agree with you. These things need to be earned. It's very important. And again, I don't want people to just accept me and like me. I want people to understand who I am and why I am the way I am, how hard I've worked to become who I am, to respect the fact that I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to steal it from you. I'm not going to assault you, that I'm going to be upfront with you in my dealings, that I'm not looking to manipulate or get over. And Rock Chartrand says, in pride. Yes. Robert Naser says, or just watch my episode on it. Robert, tell us about your episode, and I will promote it right here, right now. He says, don't get me started on unconditional love. That's what he's talking about, or just watch my episode. Robert, what is the name of your show, and where can people find it? I will be happy to share it here. Robert is great. Let me tell you that one of the big things in objectivism is the sense of life. It's optimism. It's about loving life and looking forward to the future and loving the people you're around. And Robert Nasir, if you ever get a chance, if you follow him on Facebook, you watch his posts, listens to, watch his show, he epitomizes this idea. I don't even know if I've ever seen Robert get angry with anybody during a conversation or an interaction on Facebook. Robert is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful person. And so is his wife, Amy, by the way, is absolutely wonderful. And Greg Lewis says Robert walks the walk. Yes, he does. Kat Sterling says, my ex loved what his idea of me was, so I became it. I lost who I actually was. My current boyfriend loves me for who I am, the good, bad, and messy. I always work towards being the best version of myself. Kat, that is absolutely fantastic. And that's something that, people need to watch out for, that is creating a version of somebody in your head and loving that rather than the actual person. But of course, that wouldn't even be love. It would be a distortion. Akira Felix says it's very discouraging hearing your stories about the officers only getting a slap in the hands. Yes, it was very discouraging for me as well. I reported it over and over again. I put my safety at risk because it wasn't just the officers, but remember, we were talking about them not enforcing the rules. So who loves that the officers don't enforce the rules? The other inmates. So the officers and the inmates were actually on the same team against me, which was quite a frightful proposition. I kept doing it over and over again. I would go on the radio once a week, often talking about what was going on, the prison I was in, and nothing changed, nothing happened. It's an extremely discouraging thing. But hey, what can you do? You fight the good fight. You keep going. You press forward and try to remain optimistic, like Robert Nasir. Robert Nasir, his show is 5 minutes with Robert Nasir. That's Robert Nasir, Nasir, 5 minutes with Robert Nasir. Yes, check it out. Robert is absolutely wonderful, and anybody that has engaged with him, I'm sure will say the same. I've never seen anybody say a negative thing about Robert. Equal to Reality actually says I had the pleasure of meeting both Robert and Amy in person, and he, like I said, he calls it a pleasure. Okay, well, if nobody has anything else to ask or to add, if somebody does, please post it and I'll be happy to discuss it. But if nobody does, I'm going to cut this short because I'm getting kind of tired of hearing the sound of my own voice. So I'd imagine others are as well. The capitalist thought of the day is to be successful in a free society requires self-awareness. We have to be aware of what drives us, of what motivates us, of our emotions, of our faults, of our strengths. It's the only way. Self-awareness sometimes is painful, but it usually, I can't say always because I don't know that it always does, but usually self-awareness leads to growth. It's definitely necessary for growth. So engage in self-awareness, do your best. Thank you very, very much. And remember to check out my podcast, The Rational Egoist. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Remember to check out the American Capitalist Party at americancapitalistparty.org. And remember to join us right back here tomorrow and every weekday at 12 Eastern, 9 Pacific. Thank you.